Now, it's a well-known true story of extreme survival. The plane took off from Montevideo in Uruguay in October 1972 on its way to Santiago in Chile. On board, 45 people, including a rugby team. They never got to play their match because the plane crashed into the Andes, one of the most hostile environments on the planet. Those who survived the impact were forced to take extreme measures to stay alive, including eating the bodies of those who'd died. After 2.5 months, 16 people were rescued alive. A new film based on the story called Society of the Snow has been nominated for a BAFTA and an Oscar. I spoke to its director, Juan Antonio Bayona, and began by asking how the actors relived the disaster that unfolded.
We try to be as close as possible to the reality in order to be able to capture the most authentic portrait of what happened. And they shot the film chronologically. They were losing weight. They lose a lot of weight, but in 4 months of shooting. So it was very gradual, and they were like supervised by nutritionists. But that helps them to understand better what these people went through. It's exactly like shooting in the snow. You know, they didn't need to perform the cold, you know, because
they were cold.
They were cold. Most of the film was shot in Spain, in the south of Spain, in a ski resort at 10,000 feet, in a pretty inaccessible place, but it was a place that you could bring a film crew. Then we went to the Andes, to the same place where the plane crashed, and you could not bring a film crew. So it was a much more contained and small crew of specialists, like professional climbers. We went with some of the actors, but we shot very specific shots. It's not a safe place.
All the more extraordinary that any of them survived.
No, until you're not there, you cannot understand really what these people went through.
Give us a sense, physiologically, how it struck you.
I went to sleep at 8, more or less, maybe 7:30, 8, and then I had this terrible headache. When I thought it was about to sunrise, I looked at my watch, and it was 9:30.
Gosh.
So I lose this sense of time.
Yeah. When you look at the setting as well in the Andes, this cruel, unforgiving world, it reminded me very much of King Lear on the Heath.
Yeah.
You know, the trappings of humanity stripped away, and only then do you find out what it is to be a human being. Is that how you see it?
Well, there was a little bit of that, yes. From the moment they crash in a place where life is not possible, they had to recreate life. And by doing so, they need to think what was important and what was not. And in that moment, the story becomes like a mirror of ourselves. It puts us also in the position to ask the same question, ask ourselves the same question: what is important, what makes us humans, and what's not.
And I wonder, you also consulted the survivors very closely about the film. How do they feel about what you've produced?
It was very interesting to see. We did a screening with the survivors, their families, and the families of the dead. And it was very effective and very helpful, almost like a healing thing for them. A lot of people came to them, families of the dead, and told them that they finally understood what they went through, and they felt sorry for them. And we kind of, like, in some cases, broke like a barrier of silence. I guess every single person went through this grieving process in a very personal way. For some mothers, it was very difficult to see the other kids grow up and getting married and having kids when their kids were not here anymore.
And particularly when initially it was described as a miracle. Very
Exactly.
hard if that miracle is your tragedy.
Yeah, that's exactly what you can see at the end of the film. Like, they had this kind of home welcoming. They felt like astronauts coming back from the moon. Like, they were greeted as heroes, and they felt miserable. They were coming from spending 72 days in the worst place on Earth, eating the corpses of their friends, and suddenly they were the heroes. So it's about that shock, you know. It's about finding and understanding on the other ones who they were. You know, they couldn't recognize themselves talking to the other ones.
Juan Antonio Bayona, thank you very much.
Thank you.